Welcome back to Inside the Helmet. My name is Michael. I will be your host today, right as soon as I adjust my chair. There we go. Um, Today, it's just gonna be me. My dad cannot make it to the show today, so I've got a great topic to start us off today, and then some great stuff towards the end lined up. First off, I want to discuss one of the most important discussions, one of usually, at least in an entertaining NFL season, one of the most hotly contested debates all year that typically wraps up towards the end of the regular season as we approach the playoffs, and that is the question of who will be the NFL MVP. And that is something that we here on the show have even voiced our opinions about around midway through the season. I believe I voiced support for Sam Darnold earlier in the year because he was just looking incredible at the time. This shows you how long ago we talked about this. I even talked about Baker Mayfield potentially being an MVP candidate, but of course, ever since the midway point in the season, the Buccaneers have truly fallen off a cliff. I mean, we talked about how the Colts have fallen off. The Buccaneers have well and truly fallen off even more, dare I say, than the Colts did. Um, anyway, but if you've been keeping up with the NFL in the past few weeks, past few months, you certainly know that as it stands right now, the MVP, as it is a quarterback award predominantly, I mean, the last time a non quarterback won the award was when Adrian Peterson did it back, I believe, in 2012 or something. Um, but there are two main names that are dominating the airway when it comes to this conversation of who will be the MVP. And that is Matthew Stafford, of course, the longtime NFL veteran, was with the Lions for forever and then got traded to the Rams, won the Super Bowl, and has been with them for the past few years. He has been having a great season this year. And the other person who has been in talks is, of course, Drake May, who has really burst onto the scene. It's, I believe, his second year. Um, right? Okay. Yes, drafted in 2024 is currently his second NFL season. Just wanted to make sure because with all the talks that Drake May has been getting this year, it's kind of hard to forget, or it's kind of hard to remember, honestly, if he was drafted this year or last year. But he's regardless of the fact he was drafted last year, he's really burst onto the scene this year, and become another MVP frontrunner. At times being the betting favorite to win the award. I think right now that those odds anyway have swung in the favor of Matthew Stafford as we've gotten close to the end of the regular season. And I want to kind of make the case for both quarterbacks and then voice my opinion of who well I want to voice two opinions. One, if just for a little bit of fun, if the award couldn't go to either of these two men, with both of them being quarterbacks, if they had to give the award to a non-quarterback, who do I think should get the award? And then who do I think will actually win the award? But first off, I want to start with who I believe to be the betting favorite for MVP at the moment, Matthew Stafford. I want to give kind of the argument for him. So Matthew Stafford, just for some reference, right now he is. I was looking at Drake May. Matthew Stafford at the moment is sitting on 4,448 passing yards, 42 touchdowns, and 8 interceptions. He has completed 363 of his 559 pass attempts for a completion percentage of 65.2%. In his last 5 games, he has gone 2-3. The Rams have been kind of having a little bit of a downward slope. He has his Rams sitting at 11-5 at the moment and third in the NFC West, and it's kind of looking like they're going to end up staying that way. Seattle has all but locked up the division, which I kind of predicted would happen. Um, but they've had very close losses. Is very important to note. They have the Rams in their last 5 games have lost by 3 to the Panthers, who have been looking absolutely resurgent. They have been like the opposite of the Buccaneers and Colts. So they lost to the Panthers by 3. They beat the Cardinals very handily, 45-17. They beat the Lions as well, very well, by 7. Then they lost by 1 to the Seahawks in one of the greatest games of all time, 38-37 in overtime. And then they lost by 3 to the Atlanta Falcons just 2 days ago. So certainly a lot of close losses to some pretty good teams. Like they haven't been dropping games to teams that they just should run over. They didn't lose to the Raiders or anything like that. Um, that's kind of the case for Matthew Stafford. He has been unbelievably consistent this year. The Rams have basically all year been looking like a front runner for the best team in the NFL. And sure, their 11-5 record may not reflect best in NFL status, but they've been playing an incredibly tough schedule. Like, if we look at their entire schedule, let's see who they've lost to. They've, of course, in their last 5 games, lost to Carolina, Seattle, and Atlanta. Let's back up. Before that, they only had 2 losses, and they had 9 wins, I believe. They lost to San Francisco in overtime, another very good team, just ahead of them in the division. And then they lost to the Eagles, the defending Super Bowl champions, who we have, of course, on the show, being Cowboys fans. We've been very critical of the Eagles, and we're always going to be because we don't like them, suffice it to say. Um, so take that with a grain of salt. I do believe that the Eagles have been very underwhelming this year, and I think the fact that they are the well, no, they're going to be the 3 seed, but I mean, who cares about the NFC South? They're the 3 seed, and but they're convincingly so. So they are certainly not a very terrifying team, dare I say. Um, so anyway, he had the Rams at one point with wins after they lost to the 49ers. They beat Baltimore handily. They beat Jacksonville, another surprising team who's going to be in the playoffs. Beat the snot out of them. Beat the Saints, who have honestly been kind of resurgent on their own right. Beat the San Francisco 49ers pretty handily. Had a close win against the Seahawks, and then had a nice blowout win against Tampa Bay before having a close loss to Carolina. So certainly one of the most impressive streaks in terms of winning all year belongs to the Rams for certain. Um, and I think just if you also have been in NFL news and NFL social media this year, you've seen how crazy Matthew Stafford's been going all year with his no-look passes and coming up clutch, of course, with Puka Nakua and all his other receivers. He's had Puka Nakua near the top of the receiving um, yards chart all year. I think he got hurt, though, and that's why he kind of dropped down to Jackson Smith and Jigba, who's going to take the title. Yeah, that's the case for Matthew Stafford. Let's jump over to Drake May now. Drake May, if you will. Of course, speaking of NFL media, if you've been on social media at all, anywhere near the NFL landscape, you have certainly heard the name Drake May. Certainly one of the greatest stories this year. I still believe Philip Rivers is the best story this year, but you know, he is currently sitting on 4,203 passing yards, 30 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. and 340 completions out of 474 attempts for a 71.7 completion percentage. So just really quickly going head to head with their stats. Drake May has a better completion percentage, but Matthew Stafford has the edge in yards and touchdowns. And touchdowns, I'd say rather convincingly so, by 12. And then they have the same amount of interceptions. So very close statistically, I guess, other than the touchdown mark where Stafford has the clear advantage. Um, but they're really close in yards. And Drake May, in his last 5 games, they've had a close 6 point win over the Bengals, beat the Giants pretty convincingly, lost to the Bills in New England. They beat the Ravens and they beat the snot out of the Jets. So not nearly the caliber of opponents, I would say. That's another kind of knock against the Patriots that they've been facing this year is their strength of schedule has not been of the highest quality. And you can look at the teams they've played and yeah, that is true. They let's see, they lost to Vegas, the Raiders in week 1, so that's certainly not great, but I mean it's week 1. Take that how you will. Beat Miami when they were looking terrible. Beat Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh has kind of been very middle of the road. It's very much a Mike Tomlin Steelers year for sure. Beat Carolina before they were really good. Beat Buffalo. That's kind of really what put them on the map, I would say. Beat New Orleans before they started kind of being resurgent. Beat Tennessee. They're terrible. Beat the Browns. They're terrible. Beat Atlanta really close. They're kind of up and down as well. Beat Tampa Bay when they were on the way down. Beat the Jets. They're terrible. Beat the Bengals. They're not great this year. Beat the Giants. They're terrible. Lost to Buffalo, but the Bills are really good. It's like their best opponent they have to play all year. And then they beat the Ravens, who have been looking up and down, and the Jets, who are terrible. So, to all you critics that have been knocking the Patriots for having an easy schedule, I mean, yeah, they have a pretty easy schedule, but you know what I say to that? You have to play the team in front of you. I'm saying that as a Texas fan because we had to play teams like Sam Houston State, San Jose State. Those kind of Texas A&M. Not really the best teams. Um, so I get facing criticism for a weak schedule. But at the end of the day, you have to go out there and play football against the people that you're scheduled to play against. So there's not really much that they can do about it other than beat their opponents. And that's what they've done. That's what they've been doing. Where's their record? They're 13-3. They're atop the AFC East. They are. Let me pull up the standings really quick. Um, Conference. So yeah, they and the Broncos are both 13-3. They're both vying for the 1 seed. It's gonna be very interesting. The Patriots. Sorry, I'm sorry if I'm getting a little sidetracked here. Um, but they have the Dolphins on January 4th at 3:25 Central Time. So that shouldn't really be too difficult of a win. And the Broncos have the Chargers. Oh, that'll be a tougher game. That's for sure. Although I think the Chargers, since they've locked up a playoff spot, they might rest some of their starters. So the Broncos will probably be going pretty hard trying to win that game. So I could see the Broncos locking it down as they already have the number 1 seed. Regardless, yeah. So who do I think? Well, we'll come to that. We'll come to who I think will actually win MVP. I want to open the door to one other person who I think should be in consideration. And let me see. Here we go. I want to open the door to a non-quarterback. This is someone who I think will probably walk away, like absolutely waltz home with the excuse me, Offensive Player of the Year award. Unless I'm just missing something completely obvious, which hopefully y'all will yell at me for in the comments. And that is Jackson Smith and Jigba. What, you thought I'd say Miles Garrett? Yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of Miles Garrett. Yeah, okay. He might break the sack record. He also didn't break it last week, and so I'm kind of iffy on these whole single season records being broken when we have an extra game now. It's really funny that we have an extra game. And so every year it's like, oh, is someone going to break the record? Oh, after like 3 weeks, it's like, oh, so and so is on pace to have 2,100 receiving yards. And then it doesn't end up happening. And in fact, no one has even really been coming close, especially with the passing record. I mean, people thought that Peyton Manning's 5,477 passing yards in a single season and 55 touchdowns from 2013, that would fall. And no one's even come close. I don't think anyone's even. Has anyone even had 5,000 passing yards since we've gotten the 17th game? I can't recall anyone doing it yet. So, and part of that's due to the new kickoff rules, which I hate, but regardless. So, that's why I'm not quite so as high on, like, the idea of Miles Garrett breaking the sack record in a single season. The fact that he didn't break it last week kind of really, lowers him for me. I think he should still be Defensive Player of the Year, probably. Sure. He led the league in sacks by a mile. Sure. If he breaks the record, sure, give him that award, but he wouldn't even be my first pick for a non quarterback to win MVP. That would be Jackson Smith and Jigba, wide receiver of the Seattle Seahawks. Certainly has been burst onto the scene this year. I think he was already on a lot of people's radars. Not really a underrated player, I would say, but he's certainly taken leaps and bounds forwards to prove that he's a top receiver in the NFL, which I don't really think many people outside of Seattle were considering him as such until this year. But let's look at his stats. He has currently 113 receptions on 155 targets. 1,709 receiving yards for a 15.1 average yards per reception and 10 touchdowns. So, and he also has 36 rushing yards on 7 carries. No touchdowns, though. Fumbled 3 times. Oh no. Don't give him the award. No, I think Jackson Smith and Jigba has far and away proven to be the best receiver in football this year, at least. Um, I think he should easily walk away with the Offensive Player of the Year award. Do I think that he would get MVP over either of the two quarterbacks who I've talked about already? No. No, I don't. But I think he is, if we wanted to take quarterbacks out of the equation, he would get my vote over Miles Garrett. But with that being said, who do I think will get the MVP award? I want to, before I answer that, I want to bring up one more point for each Matthew Stafford and Drake May. Matthew Stafford's Rams were 10-7 last year, and I believe they won. Yeah, they won the NFC North. They were tied with the Seahawks at 10-7, but they got the division title on some sort of tiebreaker. So the Rams were pretty good last year. They were. The Patriots were last in the AFC East at 4-13 last year. So, and yes, albeit easy schedule aside, I believe that taking into account the severe turnaround, I would vote for Drake May for this year's NFL MVP. The amount of aura and just media around him has been absolutely deserved. He has elevated the Patriots. I want you think, how many other Patriots can you name? Because I honestly have trouble. Now, sure, that might be because I'm here in Texas, and so we don't really care that much for the Patriots, but I, truth be told, I would vote for Drake May to be the NFL MVP this year, unless something drastic changes and he throws 20 picks against Miami or something, you know? But who I would vote for is actually different than who I think will get it because I'm not an MVP voter, believe it or not. I should be, but I'm not. Who I think they will vote for and give the award to, I think it will be Matthew Stafford. For the simple reason that he is leading the no, he's not even leading the league, but he is leading the league in touchdown passes. I was going to say yards. No, he's leading the league in touchdown passes. My Dak Prescott's actually leading in yards, but Matthew Stafford's number two, and he's like right behind. They've been kind of trading for the past few weeks, so I think that Matthew Stafford will get the award because he is a well-established veteran who is on the last legs of his career, and it would just be a feel-good story if he could kind of have one last hurrah. You know, he kind of got his hurrah with the Super Bowl win a few years ago, but I think winning the highest individual honor in football would really complete his Hall of Fame legacy. And I could see very well the Hall of Fame vote, not Hall of Fame, the MVP voters giving sympathy to Matthew Stafford. Not that he doesn't deserve it, of course. He is a very worthy MVP. Absolutely. I think that I could see them going because the MVP has kind of been a little bit political in the past few years. I mean, last year people said that Lamar Jackson should have won it, but they gave it to Josh Allen because the year before that they said that Josh Allen should have won it, but Lamar Jackson won it again. So it's been kind of political, and they've been giving out some like pity MVPs. I feel not that any of the past MVP winners have not deserved it, but I feel like there's just been so much controversy of like, oh, they got it wrong. They picked the second best guy, whatever. So I think they'll give it to Matthew Stafford, citing that, the storyline of him being late in his career and yada yada. Plus, Drake May, I think he'll get an MVP in his career. He's already proven in his second year to be a worthy MVP. And if he keeps playing the way that he does, he'll very easily retire with one or two at least in his trophy cabinet. So I think that Matthew Stafford will get the MVP, but I personally would vote for Drake May this year. Um, that's that conversation. Now I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about something completely different that has very little to do with inside the helmet. I don't know how well any of you out there watching or listening may be following me personally, Michael Ludi, on social medias and follow all the other things I do because believe it or not, I am not just a quarterback and a football or sports person. I like many young men my age am a big fan of video games and particularly video game YouTube. I've been watching gaming videos on YouTube for well over a decade now. And for a long time, I've kind of wanted to do that and emulate that and kind of be like the people that I watch on YouTube. And now that I'm older and have access to certain resources and capabilities, I have begun doing that. You can actually check out my YouTube video game stuff at MSL12 Games. And it'd be great if you could check that out and support me and see what that's all about. But I've always enjoyed the podcast format and being able to just kind of talk about things and have like a nice discussion and go into really nice detail about things that you maybe can't go into in a couple minute long video. And so I want to start up a new podcast centered around talking about video games. Just anything to do with video games, talking about our favorite video games, talking about like history of certain video games, any news going on in the gaming world, just anything to do with video games and that side of things. It's called Controller Freaks. That's the name of it, and that's basically all I've come up with, other than kind of basic premise. And right now, this episode of Inside the Helmet has now turned into a pseudo pilot to Controller Freaks. I'm doing this all on the fly. I want to talk about, because it is kind of still relevant to Inside the Helmet and sports and all that. I want to talk about sports video games because I feel like any fan of sports, doesn't matter what sport you're a fan of, they surely have a video game for it, at least all the major sports. And I think that it's kind of a universal complaint that people have that these sports video games, particularly stuff like Madden or 2K or EAFC, which I don't really play, or I don't care about soccer, but that there's a big complaint that it's the same game every year. That Madden 26 is the same game as Madden 25, is the same game as Madden 24, 23, so on and so forth. And I want to talk about that, and I want to highlight something that is going on with a game that I play every now and then that I actually like, and I wish that more game studios and game developers would emulate, because of course, in this hyper-capitalist society that we live in, money is king. That's no secret. And these game developers want to get rich. They want to make as much money as possible. They want to be able to pay their employees and feed their families and all that. I get it. And so they're going to want to always, every year, release a new game and all that. But I feel like that has led many game developers down the wrong direction, down the wrong path, where now they're losing a lot of the soul that what was in their games simply by, slapping a roster update and a new number onto each year's game without making real improvements or generally listening to the community. But there's one developer that has honestly come under some scrutiny in recent years for the games being lackluster, that they're doing something differently that I actually really like. And it's actually the division of EA and Codemasters that make the Formula One video games. For anyone who, and I don't expect any of you to have been all up to date on this, but the makers of the Formula One video game have said that there will not be an F126 game. They're undergoing massive changes with the developers and whatnot, and because of that, next year, when it comes time for the new Formula One game to come out, rather than making an entire new game that's essentially just a reskinned Formula One 2025, which is, a reskinned F1 24, 23, so on and so forth, they're simply going to do a big update to F1 25, that game, to include the new cars and do big updates, essentially turn F1 25 into F1 26. And then they will revisit the issue for F127 once all these new changes are fully implemented and done. I think that's a great solution, because these game developers so often have been accused of just being greedy for making the same game over and over and over again without really any real changes. And so I think this is a great thing to do. If you're not really going to have any substantial game breaking changes that would require you to output an entire new game, doing a simple update and not charging your player base $60 more at least to play something that is essentially the same thing as the previous product, simply doing an update, that is the far superior way to approach the situation, because in this day and age where microtransactions are so rampant, people are going to spend money anyway, especially if it's a good product and you give them good things to spend $5, $10, 15, $20 here and there on. People are going to spend that money. They're going to keep spending that money, and it's going to add up, and you're going to make your money anyway. And so that is kind of my take on that whole situation, and honestly, what I think that the developers of games like Madden or 2K should do. I'm not against them coming out with whole new games, but I am against them just coming out with a new game simply for the sake of publishing, this year's game without any real game breaking changes that are worth paying an extra $60 to $100 for. So that is my take on the situation, and I sincerely hope that one day more developers will take after the Formula One game developers and act as they are. But with that being said, I hope you enjoyed today's episode of Inside the Helmet. Happy New Year! If you're watching this tomorrow or any other day in the future, as today is currently the eve of New Year's Eve, is 7:07 p.m. on New Year's Eve where I am. So, Happy New Year to you all. I also want to address something really quickly before I go. I just remembered it. You may notice that when this goes up, that hopefully, if I'm able to figure it out, um, there will be a lot of previous episodes from previous weeks that will also be going up around the same time, and that is because I use a program called Riverside on my phone to record these podcasts with my dad or solo, and then go and download it and post it. But lately, the past few weeks, I've been having trouble exporting the video and the audio, and so I haven't been able to post the past few episodes of Inside the Helmet, which is why it would seem like we've been inactive for like a month or so. But hopefully, I'm able to get this one up as well as all the previous episodes. So, yeah, that might also be why you're hearing me say Merry Christmas from like last week, you know, tonight or tomorrow when this goes up. So, anyway, Happy New Year to you all. I'll see you next week. Thank you for tuning in.